So I'm gonna try and give you kind of an overview of what the work is like once you graduate and the type of work that's available. So I graduated from UConn in 1996. I actually started out in agricultural engineering, and I was one of the last agricultural engineering students at UConn. And they actually changed it to natural resources management and engineering just as I was about to graduate. Um, so in being an agricultural engineer, what I found was that that engineering school was actually within um, the agriculture and natural resource part of UConn, and the degree was actually not an accredited engineering degree. So I was taking a lot of engineering classes, and what I learned was that once I graduate, I'm not going to be able to apply for a professional engineer's license, and it really didn't have the same meaning in the real world that an actual accredited engineering degree would be. So I transferred into the School of Engineering, and at the time I had enough credits so that I could actually get both degrees. So at that time there was no like double majoring type of thing. You got a degree or you didn't. Um, so it's kind of a nice feature now that UConn has minors and this sort of thing that where you can actually get credit for some of these other classes that you take. So our office is located right on the UConn campus, and it's really nice to be able to work with the students and everything on a daily basis and get to do things like this presentation here. Um, So CME is the original company that I work for, and as of the first of the year, we were merged with CHA Consulting, which is a much larger firm. So previously, we do have offices throughout the country, and like Marissa said, they typically look for interns in specific offices, but there are probably ways of having that connection made so that if you wanted to intern in a different part of the country, you could look into that. So to give you an idea as what type of engineering I do on a daily basis, um, you know, CME and CHA, we are very diverse. We do environmental and structural and civil and environmental all across the board. My group typically does site and roadway design. My expertise is in stormwater management and erosion controls. We do a lot of municipal engineering, which includes water, sewer, and construction inspection and administration. Um, so there's a very broad area of engineering in there um, that, that UConn really has kind of that sets you up for when you get into the working the working environment. So I'm going to go to the next. There we go. Okay, um, so to give you an idea as to the type of education that you need and the licenses that you need, to become a professional engineer, you have to go to a 4-year accredited engineering school, and uh, once you graduate, you can take what's called an engineering training or a fundamentals of engineers exam, and you become what's called an EIT or engineering training, and then you work under a professional engineer for 4 years, and then you can take your professional engineers exam, and then you can be licensed by whichever state you took the exam in. And there's lots of other licenses and certifications that are available to promote you as a professional. For instance, there's some different stormwater certifications, and there's a lot of different construction inspection certifications. And so I do a lot of construction inspection, and so I'm certified to inspect concrete and pavement and soils and aggregates and this sort of thing. And different projects that you work on are going to require some of these different licenses and certifications. As a junior engineer from graduating from college, typically you're gonna be in a junior engineer role, and you're going to be doing a lot of calculations. You'll probably be checking plans, checking calculations, and doing a lot of design work. And you'll find that as you gain more and more experience, you're going to be doing a lot more of interacting with clients, interacting with other managers. You're going to be managing more projects, and you'll be doing less of the actual design where you're actually calculating numbers and this sort of thing. You'll probably do quite a bit of field work, anything from surveying to inspections, this sort of thing where you get to be out in the field and in the office. We use a lot of software. We use different state DOTs require different types of software. So some states will require you to be able to use AutoCAD, and some states will require you to use MicroStation. So there's this big duel between which one is better, and which state uses which. So typically a lot of the larger engineering firms, they like to see engineers be fluent in both of those different CAD platforms. And calculations, obviously, being able to use the Microsoft Office suite of Excel and Word and this sort of thing, that type of software is very important for doing calculations. And then depending on what type of major or what type of concentration you get into, there's specialized software that you'll end up using. So for instance, for stormwater, there's StormCAD, there's HydroCAD, and a couple other different types of stormwater calculation models that you would need to know. And similarly, if you're going to be a structural engineer, there's different types of structural programs that you would learn. I kind of touched a little bit on field work. So there is a good opportunity. I mean, you're, as a civil engineer and an environmental engineer, you're working in the environment, and whether you're doing site design or environmental remediation, all of these things occur outside. So it's always good to be able to go out and look at the site and see what's going on, and to gain some experience as to how the different things that you're designing get constructed. And that typically is all part of your job as a junior engineer. And like I said, as you work up through the ranks, you start to do more and more project management. You have a lot more people interaction. You're going to be writing a lot more reports. So you kind of see your actual engineering calculations and things kind of decline, and you deal more with people. There's quite a bit of work within the different engineering fields. You're going to be working with surveyors and architects and structural engineers and geotechnical engineers. So it's good to have this basis of different classes at UConn, so that you understand what these folks are talking about when you're working on designs with them, and when you're teaming with them. One of the things that I never really realized when I was at UConn and then getting into the real world is, one, dealing with people. There's no getting around dealing with lots of people. Everyone has different personalities, and so that's kind of a big thing you have to get used to. And the other thing is the writing. There's a lot of writing, and UConn does a really good job of incorporating that in their classes. And in fact, when I was at UConn, they had a requirement where you had to take W classes, which were classes that involved writing, and all of the engineering classes were counted as a half a W class. So I never had to worry about meeting that requirement at UConn, but that really helps set you up for when you're in the real world, and you have to, everything that you calculate, you have to be able to describe to your clients or to your managers or supervisors, what you've done. So being able to write and being able to describe that is very important. Go to the next one. Am I taking too much time?
Maybe another good 2-3 minutes.
Okay, that's good. So these are some different examples of some work that we've done. This is a stormwater basin design. It's actually like a rain garden. This was for a gas station in Connecticut. And so you can see this kind of compares the actual construction picture to the plan that we put together. So, you have to plan out the entire site and meet zoning regulations and all the other site development land use requirements. And all that information needs to be shown on the plan so that the contractor can build it. So the more experience that you have being in the field and understanding construction and how these things are built and what the contractor is going to need to see helps you put together your design plans. So go to the next one. So this gives you an idea of this is the finished site, and a lot of the things we design as either environmental engineers or civil engineers goes underground and you don't get to see them. So this gives you an example of an underground fuel storage tank and all the different things that are involved in this, and all of this needs to be designed and engineered. So you don't get to see this stuff, but it's all there and it's all engineered. So this is an example in the top left of a sanitary sewer installation, and on the right is a retaining wall installation for a roadway. These are good examples of different infrastructure projects that we've done. And there's a good mix of being out in the field and doing inspections and being in the office and doing design work. So this is an example of a public works facility that we designed, and it shows the stormwater basin in the top left, and then the overall plan for the design of the facility. So you can see that there's quite a bit of grading involved, there's some structural engineering involved, and a lot of utility work as far as the services that need to go to the different buildings, and how we're going to treat all the stormwater that's on site. So these are a couple more examples of stormwater basins. And you might just think that, hey, it's a rain garden or it's a little swale, but there's quite a bit of engineering that goes into this, quite a bit of calculations, everything from the initial construction to all the way at the end when it's owned by the municipality or a commercial owner. And you can see in the right picture, they need to be able to have a real easy and convenient way of cleaning these out and removing any sediment and pollutants that go into them. So from start to finish, there's quite a bit to consider and quite a bit that's engineered. So the UConn Senior Design Program, it's much different than when I was in school 30-something years ago. And it's really nice because they've really tailored it much more to give you better real-world experience. And so I've done senior design as a professional at CME for probably 4 or 5 years now. So these are some different examples of some of the senior design projects, and typically the way they currently have it structured is the first semester you choose your project and you determine what the project is going to be. So what is the problem, or what do we need to engineer, and then what is the basic solution. And it's basically treated in kind of like a consultant and client type of arrangement where you're actually working for your client. So you have to write them a proposal and you have to scope everything out for them just like you would in the real world. So this specific senior design project was a project that there was a large private school in Eastern Connecticut, and they were looking at increasing the capacity of the school, and they needed to replace their septic system. And this particular septic system was extremely large. It was actually large enough so that it would need to be permitted by the state. So we worked with the students to put this design together and to put their proposal together. And essentially what they do is in the second semester, they actually do their calculations, they do the design work, and then they present it to the client. So,
sorry, I went. Okay, there we go.
So to kind of when we can, we really try and give the students some actual real world experience. So, for instance, on this senior design project, which was a trail and environmental remediation that was done on an old factory in Eastern Connecticut. What we did is the students put their design together, and then I actually had them present their design and their findings to the local Wetlands Commission. So the Wetlands Commission got to actually see their design and get to ask them questions about it as if they were presenting it and they wanted to build and do what was in their plan. And in the right hand picture, that is a photo of them giving their presentation to the class and to kind of like to their client. So these are the types of things that happen in the real world, and we really try hard to give some good experience with that.